Here at WCBS 880, we've partnered with the New York Urban League to do a series on their report, The State of Black New York, which shines a light on racial disparities in our communities. And one area that we are focusing on, that the report shows that the gap is wide, is the economy, poverty, and hunger. And we are wanting to speak to mayoral candidates to see what policy ideas that they have to address these issues in the city. And joining us now is Ray McGuire. Mr. McGuire, thank you so much for taking the time.
How are you? Thank you for having me. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you so much. This report showed one statistic that one in 4 Black adults in New York City have lived in poverty at least one of the past 4 years, and that 35% of those people, if they rose out of poverty, fell back in the following year. So 50% of the job growth also, this is another statistic that really stuck out to me. 50% of the job growth here has been in industries where the average annual income is $40,000 or less. So what policies would you focus on if you were to become mayor that could help get some economic stability for people of color?
So let me first say, going into the details of the National Urban League and what they've done, my wife and I will be honored there this coming gala. And one of the things that you should also know is that before I left city, I was fortunate to write the foreword to a document that outlined the impact, the economic impact, written by an extraordinary economist by the name of Dana Peterson, the economic impact of the systemic inequities that exist in healthcare, in education, in the economy, and in the criminal justice system. The impact, which we have gone through and analyzed, was $16 trillion in the US GDP. And it also went forward to say that if we began to address it, that would be $5 trillion of additional income to addition to the US GDP. And so if you look at the plan that I have as mayor, it is to lead the most inclusive, the largest, most inclusive economic comeback in the history of the city, which is to put people to work, give people jobs, and move them from no class to middle class so they get home ownership. The study also showed the impact of lack of home ownership. So we have to give people jobs. And my plan is go big, go small, go forward, putting 500,000 New Yorkers to work so that they can earn a wage, earn a living that takes them from the lower income to the middle income, so they can participate in the way that all of us want to participate in this city. And that is my economic plan.
You mentioned home ownership, and housing is another issue here in the city. We did a report yesterday that was really striking to me. It finds that New York's essential workers can't afford to rent apartments in the city. The website Street Easy did a report that said 96% of the apartments on their website are unaffordable to New York's essential workers. They found the average annual income of an essential worker is about $56,000 a year. Average rents in the city, $2,600 a year. That's way over budget for the people who are the essential workers in our city. So what could you as mayor implement that would help this unaffordable housing problem?
So part of my Go Big, Go Small, Go Forward plan has as its core the building infrastructure building. We know that part of the Biden administration is to make sure they focus on infrastructure. My definition of infrastructure is fractured bridges and sewage mains, but it's also truly affordable housing. It should not be the case that people make $15,000 to $30,000 a year who are really essential to how the city works pay 50 to 60% of their income in rent. That's not truly affordable. So we need to make certain that we build truly affordable houses. The other thing that has been amplified here is this digital divide that we've seen. And it's had such a negative impact and profound impact on how we educate our kids. And what my plan is in my Go Big plan is to focus on building broadband so that people have access. We have 1.5 million New Yorkers. People who are the lower income don't have access to broadband or mobile, and we need to fix that. So it is Go Big, infrastructure, which includes making certain that we build truly affordable housing. It's also Go Small, focusing on the small businesses that are the lifeblood to these communities. And there I have a plan to support the small businesses with wage concessions, 50% wages, so they can keep their sales tax receipts, so that we cut the bureaucracy and give them relief on many of the fines that have been levied. And so this is how I think about it. And also going forward, making certain that the MWBEs, especially the black and brown MWBEs who've not been included in the uplifting, that they get specifically included. And that's my plan, to uplift us economically, to grow ourselves out of this. So I am pro-growth, pro the creation of jobs.
While we're asking about housing, I wanted to ask you about NYCHA housing. We know here in the city, NYCHA apartments have been riddled with problems for decades and decades and decades, mold and disrepair, general disrepair. We just reported recently that 4 decades after the death of Eleanor Bumpurs, so many of us New Yorkers remember that story so well, her great-granddaughter now is fighting for repairs in her NYCHA apartment. So wanted to know, would you make that a focus if you were mayor?
It has to be a focus. I've, spent time in NYCHA homes. There are too many open tickets. The bureaucracy here that has had such an impact, such a negative impact on our people's lives. We need to fix that. This has to become, in addition to building truly affordable housing, we need to fix the housing. We need to fix NYCHA. We need to make sure that we have the appropriate plans in place on which we can execute. So if I look at my almost 40 years here, 4 decades in New York, building businesses and fixing problems and making sure that we can execute. I've had to manage budgets larger than most state budgets. And I was the longest standing head of our business in the history of Wall Street for 13 years. So I have a track record of not only having a vision, but leading and executing on that vision. NYCHA would be one of those things. We have to give our people the opportunity to live in dignity. And right now, the conditions that you've outlined are deplorable conditions. We have to address it. We have to have a sense of urgency that people have talked about but not been about in any of these administrations.
Our focus this week is on the report, The State of Black New York. Given the current climate, the pandemic, the economy, and especially the racial justice protests that we saw over the past year, what kind of leader do you think the city needs now? Many New Yorkers are feeling it's not business as usual when we pick a leader this time, when we pick a mayor this time around. So why do you think you fit that bill?
New Yorkers want something different. New York is broke, it's broken and divided. And New Yorkers want to believe in their leadership. And so I take my lived experiences. I come up on the other side of the tracks, having been raised by my single mother, knowing what it's like not to have education is my ticket out. So they need someone who understands what it's like not to have. They need someone who's got proven leadership. They also need somebody who can bring the city together. What I've been able to do there, and also supporting and building businesses and the relationships, the ability to bring all this together. Remember, I didn't get termed out. I'm not looking for a promotion. I don't owe anybody anything. I've been part of an administration, and I'm not a politician. I have a proven track record of leading and building businesses and creating jobs. And so it's with that I come to this as the person who is best qualified to understand the language of the streets and the language of the suites, which is exactly what New York needs today. Somebody who can pull us together, develop public-private partnerships, has a vision of the greatest, most inclusive economic comeback so that we can begin to finally address the economic circumstances that you've outlined. Nobody's done that. They've talked about it, but not been about it. And I look at the safety and justice plan, which I've just come out with. And I also look at the education plan, which I'll soon come out with. These are addressing the most acute needs of the most underserved, the least of the. And if anybody's got the capability to do that, it's me. And that's why I'm running for mayor.
I think so many New Yorkers can relate with your early life and your childhood and how you came up. You have also spent a lifetime, though, your adult lifetime on Wall Street and in banking. And I believe you described yourself as a Wall Street institution for the amount of years that you have spent there. For your time that you have worked on Wall Street, does your wealth and your Wall Street ties work against you in any way? Your opponents are able to paint you as someone who is a candidate for the upper class. So how do you convince New Yorkers that your policies would help close the gap on the issues we're talking about today?
Because, it is, at one point we used to celebrate the excellence that somebody had achieved. And today it appears as though people are trying to approach that differently. I'm quite proud of the skills that I've been able to generate. I'm in every class. I'm in every class. I know what it's like not to have. I know what it's like to grow up the way I grew up. So I never left that. And I also have a track record of having invested in those others who especially look like me and extending the ladders, the ladder that Vernon Jordan and Franklin Thomas and others extended to me. And I've extended that ladder. So I'm quite confident in the track record that I've had in investing and creating small businesses, making sure that I could get people into the middle class. The track record is there. It is a unassailable track record. And if there's any moment in time when the skill set that I've been able to develop in 36 years, the longest standing head of a business in the history of Wall Street, if there's any one moment in time when that's needed, it's now. If there's a moment in time when we need to bring the city together by somebody who has got that range from the bricks to the boardroom, it's now. If there's any moment in time when we need to make sure we got public and private partnerships, it's now. If there's any moment in time we need to bring people into the economy that have been excluded from the economy with someone who's got a dim track record of having done that, it is now. So I'm quite proud of the skill set and the relationships and the experiences that I have been able to develop in a city that I love. And also the foundation that I had coming from the streets with my dear 94-year-old mother. And if Grace is with her on Sunday, she'll be 95. So I'm quite proud of what we've been able to accomplish, especially from the distance that we've come. So if there's any point in time when anybody with somebody with my background and my experiences needed, it is now. So I'm quite proud of that. And so I welcome the support, and I welcome the recognition of me having been able to knock down doors. What I want for our children is the same thing that I had. It's the opportunity. And today we don't have that for our children. That is my sole focus. My sole focus is to make sure that those children have the opportunity, independent of their zip code. They need to have the same educational opportunities to get a job, to have a career. And today we're not getting that. We're not making that opportunity available. All the others have talked about it. I got a track record of having done it. So I would say check the track record, notwithstanding how they want to paint me. The track record is going to be full evidence of what I have done and what I can do in leading this city forward.
And you just mentioned that you released your plan to transform New York City's approach to public safety and justice. Some of the things that you were talking about in your plan are ensuring fair and equitable treatment by the police for all New Yorkers, creating an emergency social services for mental health calls, conducting a top to bottom review of all public safety spending. I wonder, is this your response to, again, the racial justice protests we saw of the past year and people who feel that funds should be redirected from police and to other services?
What I've written about that I've referenced here is the systemic inequities that have existed long before COVID and long before George Floyd. So this would be a plan on which we need to execute, given the systemic inequities that we have witnessed. So yes, I think it can be viewed in response to, but it is an attempt to address those inequities with which we have all lived, especially me, who's I'm a 6'4", 200-pound black man. When I'm in the boardroom, I'm Mr. McGuire. When I leave and put on a hoodie, I'm a 6'4", 200-pound black man. So these inequities need to be addressed, and we need for once and for all to have the relationship, to develop the trust that has been breached, and we need to have that culture of respect, accountability, and proportionality. Those who are the serial misbehaviors, we need to hold them accountable, which is what my plan addresses. And we need to be proportionate. It has been said that by others that if the only thing that you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When it comes to many black and brown people, it's a sledgehammer. And so we need to make sure that we address that and address that directly.
And before we finished, since we asked you here to talk about the issues that we wanted to report on, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what the issues are that you really want to focus on when you're speaking to people on the campaign trail, and what the priority will be if you are elected once you get into office.
The priorities have to be today, they have to be the ones that I've outlined. They have to be the economy. They have to be safety and justice, and they have to be education. First and foremost, we have to get this economy back working. Today, we're facing deficits. They're going to be unprecedented deficits, and we need leadership that can get people jobs. We need leadership that will include people in the economy that have historically been excluded from the economy. We need leadership that's got a proven track record to pull public and private partnerships together, where the government can't do what the government is capable of doing or has done historically. We need to make sure that the partnerships between the public and private are partnerships that are vibrant. We need to make certain that we focus on the small businesses in the economic equation because they are so vital. That's 50% of the businesses that we have in New York are small businesses, family-owned businesses. And my Jobs Accelerator plan does just that. And so it's the economy, no jobs, no city, no jobs, no dignity. It is safety and justice, the plan to which you've just referenced, and it's education. Those are my priorities. And we have to start now. The sense of urgency is as high as it's ever been. And unless we do something today, we're going to be on the wrong side of history. And history will not treat us kindly. We have the opportunity. There is no plan B. There is no Calvary. We are the Calvary. We are the plan.
That's Ray McGuire, candidate for New York City Mayor. Thank you so much for taking the time today.